All right, time for a little more liquid. Now, what we're doing is we're only going to take this about 80% of the way. Because again, you got a dinner party, you got 12 people coming over. You want to get this done ahead so that all you have to do is cook your scallops and finish your risotto. It's just that easy. I'm going to show you how to do it. Just be patient. It'll come with time. So you may feel a little sticking on the bottom. That's okay. Just make sure that if you do find a little sticky spot, that you just sort of stir it out and get everything freed from the bottom. You don't want any color. You don't want any stickage. Is stickage a word, TikTok? I don't think it is. All right, it's that time. My figure eights are coming up dry. Don't have a ton of liquid in here. Add a little bit more. I've added almost 4 quarts of liquid. So I started with 3 quarts of rice, and I've got 6 quarts of liquid. So I'm 4 quarts in, so we're getting towards the end. At this point, I do want to add a little bit of our house seasoning, which will be available for sale soon enough on our website. Stay tuned. I happen to have some right here. So I'm going to season this pretty generously at this point. And then I'm going to work this in. And that's all I'm going to do right now for seasoning. When I finish it, I'm going to add butter and cream and cheese and herbs and all kinds of goodness. And of course, we're going to taste everything before we serve it. So at that point, we can adjust the salt and the pepper, and if it needs anything else, then we can address it then. But for right now, we're good and got a good base foundation of seasoning in there. All right, we're stirring. You can see it got a little bit darker. That's just from the salt and the pepper. I have a piece of garlic here that I think is too big. And no, I'm not dumping that on the floor. There's a garbage can over there. I wouldn't just put it on the floor. TikTok. All right, we're going to add a little bit more liquid. You want to be careful at this point too, because all rice is a little different, and so it's going to absorb at different rates and that sort of thing. So we're not quite ready to start tasting it, but we're going to taste it, and it's not so much for flavor, but it's more just to see where we are on the rice and how crunchy it is or isn't at this point. So in just a minute we will do that, and then that will determine how much more liquid we need. And this is totally up to you. If you like it super soft, you can keep going and keep adding liquid. If you like it a little more al dente, to the tooth, well, that's up to you too. I like it a little more, not mushy, but I like it cooked all the way. So I'm not a big al dente fan. I have my trusty fork. All I'm doing is just that much. All I want to see is how crunchy is the rice. Still pretty crunchy. All right, I'm going to add just a little bit. And again, this is your risotto. You can make this however you want. I like the broth that we use, but you could use chicken broth, you could use beef broth, and bone broth, stock. It's really all the same. Use whatever you like. Flavor it however you like. We're going for a very creamy, neutral risotto that is going to pair well with seafood. You could do this with all kinds of other things. The sky's the limit. Once you have the basic technique down, you can modify this and branch it into a million different ways. It's time for a little more liquid. I'm gonna add about half of what we got left. So at this point, I'm not going to add any more liquid unless I taste it again. Again, I'm just looking for a nice neutral, just not quite finished, just to the edge, so that I can take it off and cool it, so that when my dinner party arrives, I can cook for them my scallops and show off my new risotto skills. I'll be honest with you, TikTok, my arm's getting a little tired. Even though I do this 3 or 4 times a week, my arm's a little tired. Get ready to tuck in, fans. All right. All right, guys, that's the last of the broth. I'm not going to add any more. Ooh, it's got a nice little peppery finish. I like that. So I do have just a little bit of, it's trying to stick to the bottom. Typically happens when you get to the end. It's going to want to stick to the bottom. It's going to want to not cooperate. But we can make it cooperate. All right, so I've killed the heat, and I'm just letting it sit for a minute. I'm going to let that last little bit of water absorb, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to go get a sheet tray with some parchment paper on it, and I'm going to dump this out onto the sheet tray. Nice flat surface so that it can cool and will stop cooking. Carryover cooking is a real thing. It doesn't matter if you're talking about steaks, fish, rice, whatever, it's a real thing. So that I don't turn this into rice pudding, I've turned the heat off, let it stand, and then I'll be back in a second. All right, everybody, so I'm taking it off of the stove. And then what I'm going to do at this point is be very careful at home, folks. This is extremely dangerous. Kira just informed me that she's a little uncomfortable, but I've done it 1,000 times. Maybe not 1,000. So all we're doing is we're just pouring it out. And if you notice, I don't have anything sticking. I don't know if you can see that. No stickage in the pan. We're all good. And then I'm just going to do this. I'll be right back. I'm going to the dish stand. All right, so now we've got this steaming pile of risotto. So all I'm going to do is just level it out. See how hot it is. And then I'm going to put this someplace safe, like our cooling rack, to let it cool. And then I'll put it into the walk-in cooler and get it down to temp in the appropriate amount of time. And you could do this a day ahead. You don't have to do this the same day. You could totally get ahead, and then that way, again, when your guests arrive, you have a glass of wine, maybe a little charcuterie, and then you get the risotto out, and we're going to cook some scallops and show you how to finish this. Be there in 1 second.